Believe so.
Okay, so we'll wait. It's 7 o'clock on my computer, but we can wait a minute or so.
John, are we going to have Steve join us today or no?
I think so, unless you were too hard on it this week.
He thinks it's such a nice, lovely atmosphere to work in. I'm going to have to up my game a little
Yeah.
bit. Cause a little more misery in the office.
Take the boiling frog approach, just ratchet it up until he doesn't realize he's in hell.
Heat the water.
I brought him some Easter candy this week, but that's it. Now he's off.
Save me the licorice.
You like the black licorice, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
My daughter Eloise does too. Ugh.
I don't know. Usually there's tons of them. Hi, Steve.
There he is.
Good evening, Carol. Hey, Aaron. Hey, all.
Hi.
So should we go ahead and get started?
Yeah, I think
It's our
so.
planning meeting. It is a more relaxed meeting. Okay, so I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of Thursday, April 6th, 2023. We've got to fix that on our agenda.
Oh my gosh.
To order. This being our first meeting of the month, it is our planning meeting. Happy spring, everyone, and also happy full moon tonight. We have our consultants here, and our first agenda item is to work on the plan of conservation and development update. Aaron, do you want to orchestrate, or John?
Sure, sorry. Yes, so we did send out, we collected some good information at our last meeting with some of our stakeholders involved in the natural environment aspect. And so Steve took some nice notes, just highlighting some of the, I guess, the events over the last 10 years, significance, and then some goals and hopes and dreams, I guess, to include in the update. So we'd like to just kind of go over that worksheet and see if we have some common themes that, folks in agreement that some of these are important issues and you'd like to see them translate over into the plan. I don't think we've necessarily heard the last of the natural environment, and I've even received over the last couple of days some new information, a recommendation that I can share with you from a resident who is interested in having NDDB, natural diversity database information included in our land use applications moving forward. So we can determine if there are any sensitive or critical species on properties for either subdivision or development, things of that nature that's not currently in any of our application process, aside from our inland wetland agency requirements, but nothing formally through the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I do have a letter that I can, and I'll email it out to the group as well. I also pulled together, in addition to some of the comments from the last meeting, I did pull together the community resilience matrix, which was the highlights of the implementation tasks of the coastal resiliency plan that I can share with you, and also some of the goals that are included in our update for our regional hazard mitigation plan as well, that was just completed over the winter. Because we didn't get quite as many details, I think, from a resiliency standpoint or suggestions. Well, aside from our education, and I know Walter Welsh, when he discussed with the commission, referenced the plan, but we do have specific tasks that are in there to include. Did anyone have an opportunity to go through the notes from our last meeting and
Aaron, do you want me to put it up on, do you want me to put it up on screen so we can,
Sure.
okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Can folks see that?
Yes.
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 So we'll start there. And again, the questionnaire that we had sort of put out there, you know, had some of these different categories like significant events over the next 10 years, things we're worried about, things that should be priorities. So at the risk of boring people, I'll just read through very quickly the list of significant events, and I'd like to hear sort of reactions or things that are missing, or things that should be elaborated or perhaps promoted, like this is, you know, a top priority, top note, which are the pandemic bringing people out into the environment, Mad for Trees, Mad for Bees, plastics ban, land trust increasing open space holding, development and use of trail systems, mountain bike trails at Rockland, pollinator habitat at Rockland, 647 acres at Rockland Preserve with lots of these excellent amenities, investments at Rockland Preserve, and Coastal Resiliency Commission formed. Obviously, Rockland is a significant point of pride, but that's certainly not the only thing that's happened.
Could you elaborate on the plastics ban? I didn't realize that plastics were banned in Madison.
Plastic bags.
Bags. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bags. So we can clarify that. Yeah.
And Madison did that, not the state?
No,
The state didn't
Cool, I'm
ban
in
them.
favor of
It just charges you for them.
Right.
Anything else resonate over the last 10 years?
So I think this list is a good start, and it has a lot of specifics. And maybe once we review the notes from last session, I wanted to talk about sort of a bigger picture outline maybe, and start, you know, kind of clarifying where we're going to start and where we're going to get to in this section. If that's okay.
Of course.
But I think it's great to collect all these pieces of information from everyone. And I think, yeah, we should do some more public outreach for the natural environment for sure, or write something up and then have it reviewed.
Is there anything like surf club recreation wise that is not in here? I see a lot about the trails and all those kind of, but did anything, and I'm having moved here less than, 10 years ago, I don't know the answer. So I'm just asking that question. Was there any development around our beach environment that helped? I mean, does the walkway to Hammonasset, is that the last 10 years or no?
Yeah,
Is
I
that-
think so.
The Greenway Trail?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I believe it was.
Well, actually, you know what? It might have been started
Before
around-
that?
Yeah, 2008, 2009. I think it was soon after I moved back to Madison.
Okay. I just wondered under accomplishments, because we're not talking at all about I don't see anything about the beaches, and I just didn't know, if we had made some accomplishments in that area.
From a resiliency standpoint, we will have some, at least moving towards that in, the Garvin Point project, the replacement of Garvin Point, and let's see. I mean, there are some projects that have been put into the capital improvement program that are related to the parks. I mean, there's always beach and rec accomplishments every year.
Sure.
Yeah, and upgrades.
I just wondered if we were missing that part.
No, we should definitely include the
We
beaches.
should include that.
Yep.
So, yeah, I guess the only thing that came out of our last meeting, and this was, it was really focused on those who just attended that meeting. We haven't received a lot of these or any of these questionnaires back from the appropriate commissions, and however, they were all invited to participate in our last meeting. But one thing that came out in our goals was to have master plans for our parks. All that being added to the list.
Do we have that in there?
Yeah, need a
Okay.
beach and recreation facilities master plan. And I know there is talk of doing that, and specifically for the surf club as well. But yes, so I guess there are resiliency goals at the surf club as well as recreational goals, I think, and then looking at our infrastructure, our existing building at the surf club in the next 10 years will have to be evaluated because of its location in the flood zone and the need for improvements and whether or not it's desirable to repair, or rebuild in the same location.
Mhm. Thank
Under
you.
the accomplishments, I think one reason it's hard for us to talk about this in the past 10 years, because a lot of the accomplishments are not what happened, but what did not happen. For example, we did not cite a multi-acre oil refinery in Madison.
It was
You know,
touch and go there
that-
for a while.
It's the lack of development, fewer humans.
It's fair.
Looks like Bob Reinhardt has joined us. Hi,
Yeah,
Bob.
sorry, I had some significant technical difficulties with my computer.
No
Okay,
worries.
Do we have a number for the acres that the land trust has conserved besides the Rockland Preserve?
We could get that from the land trust, absolutely.
Good question.
Interesting to see it.
Of over the last 10 years, what has been preserved?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right, so we'll move on to concerns. So here, we had concern for the health of forests relative to invasive species and aging, sea level rise, inundation, which is a big one, stated very briefly, increased storm intensity, properties coming off PA 490 and being added to planned development districts, that's very specific. Ability to maintain facilities for active and growing youth sports and activities, coastal resilience, roads, facilities, houses that could be affected, and that certainly combines with sea level rise. Protection of wetlands, regional water authority owned land north of Route 80, and land trust capacity to manage small subdivision-based open space areas. Does anything sort of stand out there or is glaring by way of its omission?
I had one thought which was brought up, I think, in the planning dis list about drought. So we sort of focus on floods and coastal resiliency, but I think, I don't know if they're doing a new report on the state level. I did look and see, I think there's a 2018 report of a sort of drought response plan. Actually, I downloaded it.
Well, we had an announcement of a drought here a couple of months ago, right?
Yeah, and I think we sort of say it in storm intensities, and we get more violent storms and can have more heavy rainfall, or stronger hurricanes. But between those, we also have drought periods.
That's touched upon a little bit in our hazard mitigation plan through SCROG as well. We could pull some information from that, the information that we've gathered on that one as well. I'll share it with you.
There's something I saw either an ad about or and I don't know where I saw it, but it was specific to Madison, and it may be in other towns in the area. And it basically said, for the month of April, try not to
Oh, your lawn.
mow your lawn, do anything with your lawn. Did you do?
There's
did anyone
no
else-
mow May too.
Right. So
Yeah, it's
I'm wondering, is that, do you know, could you tell, does anybody know more about that? Because it interested me, and I thought, that's an interesting way to deal with certain things. And then I see all the landscaping people out. So I don't know if anyone's paying attention to it, but I wondered if that was part of a plan that a committee or a commission or someone had put in place. I thought that was very interesting.
So the pollinator pathway folks are pushing the No May, and our Conservation Commission does that annually as well. As
Okay.
one of
Is it successful? Has it been successful? I mean, would that be something to, to talk about in our
measure
successes?
in any way.
It's very successful in my yard. But I
It's
think
successful if you do it, right? Yeah.
when you see the perfectly manicured lawns as you
A
wander
number of
around town.
churches have adopted the no may on their lawns in Madison.
What's that?
A number of religious organizations have adopted the no mow may edge.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think we should encourage it.
Anyway, I just didn't know about it, and I wondered if anybody could tell me a little bit more about it and whether it's been
It's for bees.
successful.
It's really, to protect the pollinators and the clover.
No, I know why it is. I'm just wondering.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Are there other notes here or things that people believe that should be of particular focus? I think obviously some of the climate change, natural hazards issues certainly should have particular focus.
If you have down sea level, but maybe we can capture in that as well the rivers.
Yeah.
So we highlight that area.
John Guskowski, one, as part of the amendments to the general enabling statutes 8-2 as part of the Public Act and the consideration, from municipalities that are contiguous to or on a navigable waterway draining to Long Island Sound, I think we need to focus and at least pay attention to this new language in the statutes. Where do you think that should be added? More as goals?
I think goals, yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of an obvious one is. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So for people, and I'm trying to bring this up. There is, hold on.
Decisions, I guess, be made with reasonable consideration.
Yeah,
For
so
protection of ecosystem.
I can try to zoom in on this a little bit more. But so this is the zoning enabling statute, 8-2, and it indicates all the stuff that zoning regulations are meant to do in municipalities. And as of 2021, this section was added, which is that in any municipality that's contiguous to or on a navigable waterway draining to Long Island Sound, which frankly is most of Connecticut, if you include the Connecticut River, Thames River, Quinnebog River, Hammonasset, all of Housatonic. So be made with reasonable consideration for the restoration and protection of the ecosystem and habitat of Long Island Sound, and be designed to reduce hypoxia, pathogens, toxic contaminants, and portable debris. So that's something that the state is saying zoning regulations have to do. So that's a pretty easy to-do item for the next overhaul of zoning.
I would also add updating our stormwater regulations.
Which haven't been updated since 1981,
Oh, really?
apparently.
They reference the stormwater manual, which
Which
I
is
lean on
updated
very
from time to
heavily,
time.
at least,
Yeah.
which the manual is getting updated now too. But I think that's important.
So actually, I was referring to wastewater. I don't know if we distinguish
Oh,
between
yeah,
wastewater.
you're talking about the wastewater
Yeah.
facilities study.
Yeah,
That's
which
different.
also though impacts Long Island Sound.
Okay. So let me just jump back to concerns. If there's, I don't want to leave that off until we've had a chance to talk it through a little bit.
The properties that come off, is it PA 490?
Uh-huh.
Those can be sold to anybody?
They can always be sold to anybody.
Right,
PA 490 is basically just a tax advantage program
right.
that encourages people with larger lots of property to leave them largely undeveloped. But it's if you sell, you just have to pay whatever taxes are left on that period. It's not a permanent easement by any means.
So is the concern there that large lots can come off and be available for development?
This language was added because of the prior PDD application that included PA 490. And so this line, I think, was more of a note because John and Steve weren't part of that hearing process and weren't familiar with the PDD amendments that were made. So that's specifically what that relates to. However, we did have an earlier note of PA 490, and maybe it's on the goals is, yeah, right of first refusal.
Which I mean, it's something certainly that some towns have put in place. It requires the town to have
Money.
its administrative system up and running smoothly and a big pot of money ready to go. But certainly worthwhile goal, especially if there are targeted properties.
So does the current PDD have wording that says properties coming off PA 49 can be added to it?
No.
No,
All right, good.
it got a strong reaction when it was part of an earlier version for the zoning amendment, and especially the Land Conservation Trust folks were horrified at the idea.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Understandable.
Yeah.
So we need
And so it was revised.
All right, so why don't we look at the goals and hopes then? So investing in trails for connectivity and encouraging outdoor recreation. Have an actual approach to sea level rise and municipal resources. Retrofitting of developments to encourage more infiltration. Low impact development, green infrastructure, which I just rewrote down here. Investment in Rockland Preserve, for water well, addressing invasives, supporters doing platforms that are some very specific goals. Considering conservation development as approach to housing development and open space. Are people relatively familiar with what that means?
No, I'm not.
So this would be an approach similar to a cluster development, which allows properties to be placed on smaller lots in a sort of clustered way of and protecting the majority of the land. But conservation development sort of takes that to the next step and basically would acquire a property or put an option on a property, split off a small percentage, let's say 10%, and develop that relatively intensely and use that proceeds from the development, the very limited development, to permanently protect the remainder. So it really focuses development and leverages a relatively small area of development to preserve much more significant chunks of land.
John, do you have any examples of that in our town that you might point to? I'm sure it's been done before.
I'm not sure of one in Madison. The last time I've talked about this actively, there were several examples up in the Pioneer Valley of Massachusetts, up in the Northampton area and Franklin County, where
We do
Seems
have-
like there's something on summer, maybe on.
We do
Summer.
have, and we kind of go through our housing, in our affordable housing plan, we have a breakdown of all of our mechanisms for multifamily or more than single family development.
Mhm.
We currently have the open space conservation district in our zoning regulations. It's a floating overlay. An example, it's been used in 8 separate times in town, mostly areas north of 95. An example would be the Allison Drive development off of Green Hill Road and Wildwood there. It's set aside, an area of open space
I
essentially.
was thinking there might be one on Summer Hill that, where the trails are, kind of so I forget what that intersects. But it seems like there was a former estate, and then I think that was kind of in the middle, and then there were trails kind of put around that area, and I wondered if I
I can
was
look up.
done for that reason.
Yeah, I can look up the list. I don't have them off the top of my head, all 8 of them.
But it's been used.
It is, yes, it has been used. Our regulations require a minimum of 5 acres.
Yeah.
And they're detached, either single families or duplexes.
So it came up at our last meeting, I think it was, Aaron, about fee in lieu too, of, the up to 10%. And
For open space.
for open space, yeah.
So, yeah, one of the questions, I guess, was to formalize in the subdivision regulations, a little clearer process, I guess, or the goals of the commission. We did talk about that we don't want these little orphaned pieces of open space throughout town. The town doesn't want to manage them. The land trust doesn't want to be responsible for them either. So if the option of the fee in lieu comes up and it's most appropriate, to ensure that our regulations allow the commission the ability to make the decision of which they prefer, and also to we had this come up, the value is the regulation I think says up to 10%, and so does that get built into the subdivision regulations stating specifically 10% of the market value as shown on the tax record, or is there, how do other communities do this? Is there wiggle room as far as negotiating the value of the property? If you're looking at really creating 1 or 2 lots and, you have to pay $80,000 versus, because the value of that land happens to be higher. It's come up once here in a property off of Neck Road just recently for subdivision. I've had it come up in Guilford before, where really their waterfront parcel, it's subject to a subdivision, but you're creating really 1 new building lot in theory. And there was $100,000 fee in lieu requirement if
Whoa.
you hit the 10%. So
Where does that fee
do other
go?
towns do that? At least we can kind of talk that through. So is that usually policy or written in the regulation?
Where does the fee go? Who goes to that?
That's-
To buy
I
open
was gonna say
space?
that. Yeah, we don't
The
really have
open
a
space
system.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, there is a system of where the money goes, 100%. We have an open space fund.
So
And
that's
so
where
when-
it goes?
But how
Yes.
it's used and what land is acquired. Like, I think, Aaron, we just discovered that there is a land acquisition strategy committee, but we're not sure if it's active. And I think it would be worth recommending that we have that kind of system in place. So not only does the money go into a pot somewhere, a fund, but then how are decisions made about what is acquired and what isn't acquired. And John, actually, I wanted to circle back to you for a second. I've kind of been using your use of uppercase and lowercase that you explained in affordable housing and thinking of it open space the same way, where you have sort of the official open space and you have little properties and other edges of developments that are called open space, but they're not really useful. I don't know. I mean, I'm just sort of throwing that out as a question and as a way to think about it, but as a way also to clarify what kind of recommendations we might want to make.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I mean, that to me, that talks to this item here, fee in lieu,
Yep.
and insignificant pieces of open space. So, yeah, I mean, it may be worth a general inventory of, the holdings that, the town has, these little bits, and possibly, considering like divesting if it's not
Yeah.
useful. If there's traditionally, you might have a subdivision on a cul-de-sac, and then everyone has like this, ring of open space behind all the houses on the cul-de-sac that basically functions as larger backyards for everybody.
Right,
And the
exactly.
town doesn't get any value to basically offer that to the property owners, and develop a little bit of revenue as a result, so that we can focus on more significant pieces of land of higher priority.
Yeah,
But
with
that could
more,
be, yeah,
a better strategy.
right. I like that.
Well, and then also to consider, whether we used to make, or the Board of Selectmen would decide, and Board of Finance, to make annual contributions to the Open Space Fund.
Has that not carried on?
No, we're not currently making contributions to my knowledge.
And
We have a little over $200,000 in the account, about $230,000.
and who manages that? The Board of Selectmen?
Yes, to purchase any land that requires, acquiring land is a whole process that, prescribed in the charter, essentially.
I would, not to contradict, I'm sure it is, but statutorily, if you take money in lieu of open space, that pot of funds is technically controlled by the planning commission.
Oh,
So it may be, and I don't know if the town has made a practice of acquiring a lot of, fee in lieu. But if
No.
it has, I would be more aggressive about making
Yeah.
sure you had a voice in that process. But
Well, it would require an 824 also, right? And so the use,
Right.
to
oh yeah, I
purchase-
mean it would require an A24 in any case, yeah. But I think in the case of an open space fund that's created as part of the subdivision statute, that is under the control of the planning commission.
interesting.
I don't know if it's really been emptied much.
Maybe this is our chance to clarify, though.
Yeah, we
Well,
could get some
does-
history, but also a recommendation to have a member of the commission, involved in a land acquisition committee,
Yep,
an active committee who is monitoring. In Guilford, we had a really good active, and it was a different, there are different goals, I think, for land acquisition between the communities. I don't know that has been a priority.
If the 200,000 is burning a hole in your pocket, there's an amazing little pocket park I have my eye on for Essex.
I have
Well,
a great
let's
piece
go
of property that we have our eye on. We just can't afford it.
we'll let you know when we have our committee.
All right, thank you. I'll just request a shadow seat on that committee. Okay, so going back to goals, conservation. So we left off on conservation development, using POCD to pursue grant funds, continue to mention open space, being opportunistic, contiguous to existing preserves and adjacent to waterways. We talked a little bit about the right of first refusal and perhaps targeting properties that could also be in conjunction with the property acquisition strategy. Use farmland more actively and lease of town-owned farmlands, which is something I'd be curious at. I think, again, Aaron, we should probably collaborate on doing a bit of an inventory of the different categories of open space. Because I don't know what the
Yes.
current
Another is the tax, the process. This was talked about in our existing POCD, the process for approving properties for PA 490 status refers back to a process that was spelled out in 2000. And basically my understanding of this is that if someone makes an application for open space status, if it's not currently identified in the maps in the 2013 plan, it's ineligible. And I think that's really, there's no room for growth there, really. So I think we need to add that as an action item to reassess that process. The assessor's office relies heavily on me personally as the town planner to determine if a property is consistent with the POCD. And I think historically it's been interpreted a little differently. I look to read the actual definitions of what we have for the various types of open space. And I think historically they have just looked at the open space map. That's fixed for 10 years.
So at building in some flexibility to this process.
Yes.
Okay, so then we were on Walner Estate, which is adjacent to Rockland Preserve, a specific recommendation. Conducting a natural resources inventory that would both connect resources and trails. Public facing interactive GIS website, which is obviously very important. Maintaining, I'm gonna highlight that, that's important.
That's happening currently. Yes, we're working on that right now. And my goal is to add as many layers as we can to the GIS. The internally facing GIS system that we had an externally Scrog based that wasn't regularly updated. And some of our layers are outdated, and I'd love to be able to partner with the Land Trust and be able to have trail systems and other opportunities added to that GIS.
Okay. Now, maintain, protect as many resources as possible for active recreation, such as youth sports, possibly making athletic facilities in more residential areas, north end of town, and softball fields. How to make plans implementable. That's sort of a to-do for us. Increase public education efforts around flooding and resiliency, and I think what Janet was asking about NOMO May certainly makes sense, fits in with that. Natural resources education and outreach to schools. Beach and recreation facilities master plan. Focusing on fee and lieu, we talked about. I think this is a pretty important one. Hazard signage and evacuation route signage, and then things that we talked about earlier would be incorporating some of the Long Island Sound zoning requirements and updating our stormwater regs. So that's a big list. And certainly, but it's not comprehensive. We have things that we want to add.
What is John, being new to this process, what is this list supposed to represent?
So we just basically broke it down. We wanted to a jumping off point to talk about the natural environment, and you'll recall from our outline, actually, that we're splitting up some of the analysis for the plan of conservation development into the natural environment and the built environment. And so we're starting our discussion about the natural environment component, and so we just had some prompts, really, almost like an informal SWOT analysis of what have we achieved, what are our goals, what are our concerns. So just start talking about this, and I think maybe this is the time that we segue into Carol, your question about structuring this into something a little bit more understandable, digestible, organized.
Yep. So Bob, this was from our last meeting when we did have some stakeholders come and everybody just sort of threw their ideas out.
It's just blue sky kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, or even just, kind of what's on your mind, share with us type stuff. So what I wanted to just ask about is if we could maybe begin this section with some definitions and, you know, how do we describe our natural environment? You know, different resources, ecosystems, parks, playing fields, but especially ecosystems, and even Aaron, how it reflects in our committees and commissions within town. So, you know, what do inland wetlands, what definition do you have for that? And water courses and versus salt marshes. And, you know, I think, John, I don't know, I tend to go from general to specific in the way I think. And so I just thought it'd be helpful that we're all understanding what the terminology is.
Yeah, like, I don't understand why youth sports has anything to do with the natural environment.
Because they use a lot of open space and fields that
They-
are undeveloped.
And
No,
recreation.
they cut down the trees.
I mean, it is sort of
not
a
the natural environment.
But they
It's
leave
a
behind very
hiking.
small trees called grass.
What?
single blades of grass, but it is actually a connection to the built environment in a way, because they've altered the landscape
That's for
for a
sure.
certain purpose, but it is recreational. It's out, you know, it's one way to get out in nature. Well, sort of in nature. And then again, going back to sort of from general to specific, and so listing all the different commissions and committees and staff and nonprofits we have in town who steward our natural resources. I thought it'd be great to get that, and what systems are working, what aren't working. I don't know, John, can we even include some of the like state, regional and local organizations and their regulations and rules? Because I find I'm constantly having to look stuff up on the Connecticut.gov website. And
Can you give me a specific, or for instance?
I guess, well, you guys, like you and Aaron are very good at rattling off different statutes and regulations, and maybe just have a quick summary of what those are. I mean, obviously we don't have to put everything in, but just what's relevant to, or what, like what's the A24 and what's the PA 2129, and, how does that impact a local community? Is that asking too much?
No, I think it's worthwhile. I wonder, well, I mean, yeah, the level of detail or granularity to go into these things.
Maybe
you
an
can work
index,
on.
an index or something, so that, is that what you're talking about, Carol? So that people could reference easily if they wanted to know more?
There could be an index or an appendix, or
Yeah.
we've also talked about, should we be doing some kind of glossary, and maybe, we've talked about sort of splicing in some of the really important terminology to make sure that everyone understands it, or we could have a separate glossary. I don't know what makes more sense, and maybe both make sense. So some things would be great as like sidebars. Like I've had to look up inland wetlands and get the definitions of what's included in inland wetlands.
This matters because I can tell you one place, a number of places have had great fights over whether a golf course counts as the natural environment. Some people feel strongly that it does not.
Yeah, and especially
others disagree.
Our golf course feeds right into Long Island Sound. There's salt marsh, there's wetlands, there's Phragmites surrounding it. And I mean, one year I saw them pour Roundup all over the Phragmites, and I just thought, wait, that's pouring right into Long Island Sound. And it came right back the next year anyway.
One of our duties is, as a commission, is to make the POCD as understandable as possible to the regular person reading it, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, I think many times in something like this, we kind of talk over, or we might understand something that, and someone just not familiar at all would not understand. And so I think I love the idea, Carol, of, referencing things and explaining.
And kind of broad strokes, and then getting into the specifics.
Yeah. I mean,
if you read through the statutes, they're not that easy to read. So we have to kind of strike a balance of
Yeah,
how to provide this information and what.
Well, that's
specific-
what I mean, referring to it, if you
Yeah.
want to know more about kind of things. Excuse me, guys,
I mean, we have suggested putting up links, but John, you've said that often those links become obsolete pretty quickly, and
Yeah, I mean, so we can sort of get a sense of, certainly I think the Connecticut General Assembly statutes link is probably going to be okay, but
yeah,
the any specific, DEP or land trust or whatever, those things are very fluid.
yeah.
Um,
Anyway, I just wanted to throw
Yeah.
these ideas out, and as this kind of comes together more, think about it. And then, and then again, should we go ahead and draft something and share it publicly without further input, or should we try to get more stakeholder input? Aaron, we didn't get any response really from the questionnaires sent to everybody, so.
We had some individual residences complete them, but I haven't had any of the formal committees or organizations complete the forms. But a large number of those groups did show up at our last meeting, and I think kind of talked.
Yeah.
So, I guess one option would be to take some of this information that we've gathered so far, just from commission feedback and the feedback that we have received, and try to draft that into some general
But I guess-
section related to the natural environment, and we can share that.
What is I'm lost a little bit because I don't typically start a 10-year plan this way. What is the end goal that we're trying to achieve? If you're walking around Madison 10 years from now, what is it that we want to see? Not worry about how we got there, but what is it? Is it more parks? Is it baseball fields, soccer fields, giant trees, no trees? I'm typically I start at the end of a plan. We achieve this and then work my way to how did that happen? And then you get into the details like this. This honestly just confuses me because it's going in 30 different directions.
Right. So
I don't know how to get it together because I don't know what the end point is. Are we trying to urbanize Madison or ruralize it? Or are we just trying to maintain the balance that's there now? Even a simple question like that. But I don't have a picture. And I do like the idea of having some kind of appendix that says when you refer to PA, whatever that was, 420, the 3-sentence thing, PA 420 is a thing that allows farms to pay less taxes. Go here for more information. Most people know how to Google, so they'll find it. But do we have that kind of?
We did our vision and mission draft, and that's very general and vague. And I think that it's hard to answer your question, Bob, because it's not like a business 10-year plan, but it is a balance between, that's why I think we want to emphasize the interconnectedness and the balance of conservation and development.
Well, I think this is kind of a nice segue too, Carol, where they can kind of introduce you to the strategic plan process that's going to be happening. And one of our goals is to have a little more public outreach. And we were hoping tonight, if we're ready, to talk about some of these questions that we would like to ask our residents, exactly what you were talking about, Bob. And so I did send around sort of a list of generic questions. I think that we have a consultant. Well, let me back up. So the Board of Selectmen have decided at this point that they're going to be creating a strategic plan for the town. A draft had started back in 2019. I think that the process kind of started and never really got too much traction beyond this draft. And so the board would like to move forward and create this document to help identify, the goals of our government and our local government in general and some fiscal responsibility. And they've acknowledged that this should tie into our efforts for our plan of conservation and development as well, so that we're working together and not coming up with different goals during each process. And so just recently, the board has hired a consultant to assist in that process, and her name is Cheryl Trent, and the company is S Brands. And so John and Carol and I had an opportunity to meet her and try to just kind of come up with ideas or understand how she wanted to approach public input as part of that plan, and to see how we could leverage each other's efforts, I think, so that one, we're not flooding our residents with surveys or other, forums or questionnaires, and try to combine some of these. So Cheryl had shared with us just a general list of questions that they often ask with strategic plan. I shared them with you to see if you thought any of them, I think a lot of them are harmless and are helpful to the strategic plan, but may not be as focused as we would like for some information we want to gather as part of our POCD. So I would encourage you, if you have ideas, and Rob, Bob, how you have mentioned, where do you want to see the town? If we think of these ideas, I think she's looking to roll out a survey in May. Some focus surveys, some specifically to business owners, specifically to employees of town, and then also general residents, with some questions focused for seasonal residents and then year-round residents as well. So that getting some of that information, Bob, I think will help us as we move forward, actually structuring and identifying if these goals are really, or these concerns are really speak for the whole.
Well, and Aaron, we got into a discussion of, what is the town strategic plan versus the plan of conservation and development, and, town focusing more on government and finances is my takeaway from it. And ours is a much more broader sort of master plan. They interrelate, they should kind of align, but they're different documents, and I kind of want to maintain some independence, wouldn't you say, John? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I think Aaron's point is about them being somewhat harmless, or I would say, perhaps somewhat anodyne, is a good description. I think I would caution against wanting to do too much of an independent effort. I think there was some sense that the community feels a little bit surveyed out recently. And if there is going to be, it's a significant effort, and this is, on the selectman side, this is a significant effort to solicit public opinion. It would be much more efficient, and I think probably easier to tack on a couple of targeted questions that we would use specifically for the POCD. But I think, we'll get broad sense of the community about what are the important things to them, whether it's the beaches, whether it's trails, whether it's the open spaces, schools, whatever. That can definitely inform the different sections of the plan. But if there is something in what the proposed draft questions don't specifically cover that is important to us, I would encourage us to tack those on to that effort rather than trying to do something entirely on our own.
My input is I'm trying not to sound like I'm just name calling, but if this is the survey questions, if these questions are for a general purpose survey, whoever put them together is totally incompetent. You can't go to the public and ask questions in that manner and think you're going to get any kind of reasonable data. There are ways of doing this that the public that you can get data. You got to find out as far as what you want to learn, maybe these are okay, but the way to do it, to somehow send this out and say, what do you value most about working for or with the town of Madison? What does working with the town of Madison mean? I don't work with the town. I mean, and what do I value most? I mean, you're not going to get anything reasonable. The way to do this is to do a number of focus groups with citizens and then put together a questionnaire with some closed-ended questions. Of the following, which do you think should be, pick any three of the most important challenges and trend in the same question. You don't do that. A challenge is something that's a challenge. It's something you've got to overcome. A trend may or may not be in any way. It's just, so I would urge whoever is putting this thing together. I mean, look, I taught the course at Penn State for 30 years on public opinion research, and this is just as well as getting paid a lot of money over the years as a consultant to try to get data. So anyway, I'm willing to help, but don't go out with something to the general public that says that's like this and think you're going to get anything useful at all. You're just going to, come across as not serious. So anyway.
Do you have any
I'm all in
suggestions?
favor of getting information from the public too. I'm not saying don't do it, but do it competently.
So to that end, do you have any suggestions as far as closed-ended questions that you think are relevant for this process, whether the natural or built environment? That's the feedback that we're looking.
Well, first off, I would do some figure. Sure. I would figure out, I would ask this group, what's the information that we don't have that we find most useful in putting together a plan of development and conservation? I think Rob asked that question using different language, and maybe, do some focus groups with business owners. It's just a combination of some people who've been here and try to get some input. Also, do it with us. Also, maybe get a facilitator to do it and try to figure that out. And then that'll narrow it down and have us say, okay, there seems to be some basically different perspectives as to where we should be 10 years from now, and then put together a more systematic survey. So it's doable, but it takes some work. But my point is that doing something that's just embarrassing like this, if this is something that would go out to the general public, let's not embarrass ourselves. Or I would encourage with this wouldn't come out from us, but it would come out from the town.
Yeah, this is the Board of Selectmen and their.
Yeah, I mean, if you say one of the most important issues, what you're going to get is, what was the lead article in the Shore the last time? If it was excessive partying downtown, 60% of people goes, well, we have a problem with excessive, it's not a good way to get input.
The only thing I would note,
John,
is that I do know the consultant on the selectmen's master plan side is going to be doing focus groups as well.
Great. Focus groups
There
can
will
be done
be-
very systematically, and you'll get something and then use those data to put together something. Yeah.
So this is a multifaceted approach. There will be 30 to 40 individual interviews there of various individuals throughout town. There will be focus groups, which are at this point. So there is a working group of staff and members of the Board of Selectmen. And then there's a committee who will be assisting in the strategic plan process. I am on the working group side, the staff side, working with our consultant and meeting regularly.
And I think I'll be on the committee.
To help on this. So we will have this link and this connection between our process and the strategic plan. I think the consultants for the strategic plan have very successfully executed many strategic plans for other municipalities and have experience even prior municipal employment experience. These are lists of potential questions, and our consultant for the strategic plan will be joining one of our upcoming meetings as a guest to talk to you about that process and to receive your feedback. But I think one thing that she is looking for at this time is just that suggestions for questions. If you happen to disagree with an approach, perhaps put in writing what you would suggest. And, if we're talking about our natural environment, which we are currently, how, is there information that you feel we're missing right now from our community? And how should we word that so that we can pass that information along to be included? The first step is this survey that is going to go out. And then also if we think that there should be a focused, or a specific topic related focus group, such as housing or, some other transportation or something related to that, then that's information that she would like to hear as well, so that we can participate and utilize this process to gain some information. So we need to become actively involved in this process here before these questions go out. Or these
You
Is
do
the
the
survey
focus
going
group
out?
first. You don't do that, and you use that to put together some kind of systematic questionnaire if you want a broader public view.
Aaron, when is the questionnaire supposed to go out?
The beginning of May, I think, is the goal.
Yeah,
And I think some of that is, there will be focused ones, I think, for the school. And, again, there's internal staff questionnaires to go out, those who are partners with the town, community members, summer residents. There are, some of them will be, our school groups will only be here until June, to reach whether we're looking for student response, things like that.
So, Erin, I got the sense that this is Cheryl's sort of first general survey that they throw out. And in fact, I think she forgot to change, like, at the end of it, it says Williamson
It's
County.
very boilerplate,
Boilerplate. And, maybe she gets useful information from it. I also have in my notes that, it's a standard list of questions that she'd like to get out, I think by April 20th even. And we're invited to add to it. I have to sort of say, I think there's some relevance to some of the things she's asking that if they get responses, we'll find useful, but I couldn't really think of how to add to it.
Well, maybe John or Steve, have you done surveys in other communities that you have some examples of things that you asked?
You think I'm going to admit that with Mr. O'Connor?
Well, well,
I mean, we have, yeah, and I mean,
We did the affordable
we
housing.
did the affordable housing plan, and the thing is, with deference to the experts in the room, these are not, intended to be, statistically impenetrable, referenda on people's deepest beliefs. They're snapshots, and the idea is generally when we do these, we give them the appropriate weight, which is to say, it's not a binding referendum. It's a snapshot and an overview of public sentiment. And that it is another piece of input that this commission needs to filter their ideas through, similar to the demographic realities on the ground and the natural resources and the fact that the town doesn't have sewer lines, and so all of these factors, is in the public opinion surveys, however they're structured, is just another one of those bits of input. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the survey that we did for the affordable housing plan is a pretty reasonable example of the sort of thing that we tend to put out there.
Yeah, no, I'm not anti-survey. I'm just saying do it competently. Don't ask a question like, what is the one thing Madison should keep doing?
More
You're
survey.
going to get a useful data from that? Come on.
I mean, maybe it's sort of a conversation starter for the focus groups. I don't know.
Oh yeah, for focus groups, sure. Then you throw out and follow up, but get somebody experienced in doing focus groups too. There's a whole methodology and training as to how to do them to come up with.
Yes.
It's
Th-
not
this
time
group
for
has
the amateur hour.
facilitators on staff.
So I hate to be blunt,
Okay.
but this is not our role, I think.
Right.
If we want to add a few questions onto it, I think it's a great idea. I'm not sure we'll get much out of this, but it's not my role to say anything about it.
Yep. So if anyone thinks of any questions they'd like to add, send them to Aaron, John. Should we do that? Aaron, do you want to be the?
I'd filter it through Aaron.
Okay.
Yes,
So
I'll work on some suggestions, I think, as well, because I do think it would be helpful to include.
what I would then to bring this back around to the next steps of the plan, what I would propose we where we head, and again, I think to Robert Reinhardt's comments and questions is, we're starting to get this info. What does it mean? Where are we going with it? And I think that's a fair question. And so we're just sort of in the early processes of talking about some of these issues, these hopes and fears. And so what I would propose generally, and again, if you look at the general agreed upon outline, or the rough structure of the outline, which I'm scrolling all the way up, is again, so the introduction, community vision and goals, natural environment, built environment are the two sort of big substantive sections, and filtering those things through the paired core themes of vitality, connectivity, resilience, sustainability, and opportunity and growth. And so how to get from here to there, and this is, you can see this is part of the working document. So in the natural environment, I would propose structuring that section, this big chunk, one of the two most significant chunks of the plan, roughly like I've got it on the screen, which is sort of the introduction, what is the natural environment, what's included, which includes some of these things, Carol's definition of terms, an identification of who's working on it, what's being done, the open space plan, the coastal resilience committee, the natural hazards mitigation plan. What are some of our existing resources, sort of the what is and what's going on, the open space maps, the trail maps, the maps of sensitive habitat, things like that. And then, excuse me, come back to the question of those core themes. So how should our approach to planning for the natural environment, or planning for our interaction with the natural environment, look at, and I'm going to blank because I'm fighting a head cold, but the three paired themes of, where am I? Vitality and connectivity. And this is, a lot of this is going to be very narrative. so what does it mean for the natural environment to be vital, to be connected, to be resilient, to be sustainable, to provide opportunity and to have growth, and to sort of discuss those things through some specific elements of the natural environment. And then to take that, and I think take, excuse me, a lot of our discussion from the last couple of meetings and structure some big goals, such as really get a handle on our open space acquisition strategy, or do a better job of targeting open space or in natural resources protection investments. Do some real work towards structural resilience in the town in near shore areas, etc. And then break down each of those big goals. And I think, order of magnitude, we're probably talking, I don't know, 5 to 8 big goals that kind of cover the different elements of the natural environment, and then break those down into the action steps. So that's ideally sort of how we bring all this discussion sort of back into something of a plan structure.
Mhm.
And I'll start with you, Madam Chairman, but this is sort of, if this makes sense, to try to get us back into a structure.
Yeah, I think it looks great.
This is great, and if you give this to someone, they won't know what we're talking about, I'm afraid. There's no way of communicating this I'm looking at, when you look at it, it's gonna be a lot of words here. When we look at those dual goals and you look at the, I think the original vision statement, there's a lot of words. We try to capture every single thing we can think of and make sure nothing's left out. And it doesn't convey a sense of what we're trying to actually achieve. And I think if part of the reason for this is a tool to communicate, I don't think we're going to communicate to a majority of the residents. I love reading stuff like this. It's great. I'll get it because I'll just keep reading it. But I don't think everyone's going to want to read it. They're going to want to read a paragraph that says, got it. I understand. I'm all for plan of conservation development because it's going to allow us to do this, or it's going to help us do this.
I think
I know that's the hardest part, the simplification and summary of it. It's incredibly difficult.
I think the actions will do that, Bob, in some way. And especially we've talked about making them less broad, more clear, and the implementation of them more clear, who's responsible, how it could be done. Is that, what do you think, Aaron and John?
Yeah, and I think, ultimately, it's, sort of the idea of, I could have written something much shorter, but I would need a lot more time.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But I think the idea is to start writing a lot of stuff, and I think Carol is right that the goals and the actions are the meat of it, and then I think it's really kind of a matter of maybe formatting and using executive summaries or sort of digest versions, so that we can sort of capture that where we got to in the end. Here are the 6 big goals for the natural environment and the 25 individual actions. We can put those in a summary up front, and then for people who are interested in learning why we got from here to there can read the whole plan.
Bob, if you have any ideas about, where we want to be in 10 years?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say today I was riding my bike, and I was thinking about carbon neutrality, and that, I think we have sort of a federal goal of where we want to be, say by, I don't know if it's what the number is, what the date is now, 2050. And I was thinking, okay, so we have 10 years here to work toward that. So, as a decade by decade toward carbon neutrality, should we be thinking that way, for example? I don't know.
Like I said, it's the hardest part. It's boiling it down to the elevator speech. When someone corners you at a bar and they find out you're on this and you're writing this, they're going to say, well, what are you trying to accomplish? And it's that you got 30 seconds.
You have to keep drilling down. It's like what I did in my career for 30 years. You have to simplify, simplify, simplify. And it's really hard to do. But if you're a good communicator and if you do it well, that's why I think, you know, Carol's idea of a glossary or an index or something and pointing into, you know, going somewhere else to read if you want to learn more is so important, because you have to keep it as simple as possible. And that's really difficult.
Yeah, and one other, we kind of talked about this a little bit just on our general format, that we really liked this concept of the natural and the built environment, but we found that we thought that we may, moving forward, find that we have to be a little more specific within that overarching natural, that overarching natural environment, where we want to have a section that just talks about resiliency or open space, so that it's a little more easily identifiable throughout the plan. If you're interested in open space, then you're in this section and you don't have to read through the entire natural environment to kind of find what you're looking for, and I think formatting wise, we may have to play around with this a little bit, how we pull these themes, these connecting themes through both the natural and the built, but still being specific enough where someone can open the document and refer specifically to that area that they're looking to.
Yeah, and find what they're looking for without having to read everything.
Right.
Bring this all back around, don't we really need to determine what the big goals are, both in the natural and the built, before we can kind of dive into the details?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying, is I don't know what the big goals are. I'm reading the vitality and connectivity description, but it's just a description of vitality and connectivity. I understand what that means, but I don't understand what that means for Madison. Does it mean connecting all the parks together with a bike trail or some other kind of electric vehicle thing? I don't know. Is it jump on this and see all the parks at once? Is that what we mean? Or does it mean driving more business? Vitality's, it's well defined, but it can go in 5 ways. So
you mean jobs here that for folks who live here, and the jobs are not the highest paying jobs?
I don't know.
Is that a goal?
But I think that's, to your point, John, is what is that? That's what I'm struggling with. And again, I know I wasn't here when you all started this, but in reading through it, I don't get what the big goal is, or goals. And it should be 3, 4, 2, 3. I always like 3. It's easy to remember. But anything more than that. And then when you say there's gonna be a list of 25 actions, you're gonna lose someone after the first 3. But say you can build off. We want to make Madison we want Madison to become a vital and connected community, a community that's resilient and sustainable and has opportunity and growth for all. And then the snippets of what each of those means for us, not what it means to be opportunity and growth for all. But in Madison, what does that mean?
Right.
How do we get to that? It's not here.
Not yet.
No, it's not there yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I always start there, so I get lost in. If I start in details, I just get lost right away. It's not capable of it.
So what I would propose, and I don't want to, would perhaps be, and maybe taking some of this stuff out of order, but I think we might be at a place at this point that Steve and I could start roughing out those big goals, because they don't need to be that detailed, and we've gotten a lot of input on some of these things. So I think we can in advance of next meeting have somewhere between the 3, Bob, and more my preferred number of 6 or 8. But just because I think the natural environment covers so much.
Yeah, I know. That's just it. I'm not sure if 3 works, but maybe it's 3 per. Yeah, the natural and the developed, right? Maybe it's 3 per.
We could, but then the other challenge is, this is a plan for the entire town for the entire next decade.
Mhm.
And more than 3 things need to get done.
Mhm.
And I mean, if we can somehow fit them thematically under, 3, thematic umbrellas,
Mhm.
where it's, increased connectivity of our natural
That's it.
environment, and then we put in, trails and greenways and
Yes.
things like that under that. If we can get it down to 3, I'll
We
give
can.
it a shot. But I think that's where we want to start next. So
That's exactly what I'm thinking, is those thematic umbrellas that I can sell to anyone I bump into. Because that's how I look at it. When we're done, I'll be a salesman. You guys wrote it. What do you mean? It's 3 things. We want to get 3 things done. There's a crap load of stuff underneath that, but there's 3 things. If you want the details, buy me a beer. We'll sit down for 2 hours and I'll go through them.
Or read the appendix.
I'll read the appendix. It's up to you. Read.
okay.
If not,
So why don't we start with that? That'll be our marching orders for the next meeting.
that'd be awesome.
Is to rough out
That
some
would
of
be great.
the big goals.
Yeah.
That'd be super.
Kinda-
I mean, also, just for reference, the 2013 POCD, Aaron and I counted, what was it, over 113 tasks were listed altogether, and I think 13 got done. Some are in progress, but yeah, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, I read the town strategic plan as it currently is. It's the same thing. I think it goes all the way up to the letter Z something as far as goals, not even the tasks. And you can't do that. You'll never get it done. There's too much. There's no focus.
Yeah.
And John, I'm really impressed that you actually get through this with that head cold.
I think there's,
I'd be in bed.
what we haven't talked about also there is an issue of how prescriptive we should be. I mean, how much do you want to limit what people can do their property?
We'll keep that in mind for sure.
Mhm. That'll
It's
be a
not
lot.
easy.
No.
Clearly, Madison is comfortable with zoning, to put it mildly. If you ask them, they may say, a number of people would say they're not, but then if you say, so it's okay if somebody puts a brew pub next to your house, since brew pubs seem to be the popular thing to be, you don't want next to your house. I think they say, maybe zoning isn't that bad. So
Mhm.
anyway.
Well, John and Steve, if you can give us some structure and goals, that would be terrific.
Sounds good. Steve, you got him? All right. Awesome. Yeah, so that'll be our goal next time. And I believe, Aaron, if I'm not mistaken, the strategic plan consultant wants to join us for the next meeting, right?
That's the tentative plan, yes. I'll keep you updated on that.
Okay, so we'll plan in advance to sedate Mr. O'Connor and we'll go from there.
I'll send in some suggestions.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input, everyone.
John, take care of yourself.
Yeah, I
Gosh.
hope you feel
Yes.
better.
Thank you.
My son just tested positive for COVID again, so,
Oh.
but I haven't seen him lately, so.
That's rough. I know this is not COVID. I tested, yeah, but
Okay, good.
it'll be fine. All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank
Feel
you.
better, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thanks.
Okay. Much to think about, and thank you all for all your good comments. And this is a working document. Yeah, so it will change shape along the way, I think. And it should.
Mhm.
And I even like to think of it too as a living document that can be updated during the next decade. So it doesn't have to be perfect.
No, yeah, there's a quote I like that says plans are useless, but planning is essential.
There we
Once
go.
the plan is done, it's outdated, but
Yeah,
all the thinking endures.
The
Yeah.
process.
Be cool if you can make it.
Quick question for Aaron before we leave the topic. What is the zoning or the legal status on the 4,000 acres of water company land? Is there a risk or a chance that they would sell some of that?
They have a classification system for rating their open space, and it's for aquifer, drinking water protection. And so they were selling off, I think class 1 is the high priority land. Class 3 is their lower, their lowest tier. They had sold off some. I think the arrangement is first to offer that to the municipality. And sometimes they've sold, class 3 as an opportunity to acquire more class 1 land. But that is, I think I need to learn a little bit more about that. I do know someone who sits on their board and can kind of help educate me a little bit on that. But yes, I guess if they were looking to sell land off, that's something that we should be concerned with because they own quite a bit in town.
Right. Right.
So I can get you a little more information about what their rating system is and how they, how much they've gotten rid of over the years. I'm kind of curious myself as far as how that's been done.
It seems like that could be a big impact, 4,000 acres.
Yeah, that's huge.
Right. I don't think they're planning to eliminate, any of the class 1 or 2 really. And I can't really speak. I guess it would be nice to see a map of what's class 1 versus class 2 and class 3 and where those kind of are located so we understand it a little better.
Right.
Yeah, I'll look at that for you.
Okay, so we have a list of pending applications. Aaron, it looks like the April 20th meeting will be a busy one. Do you want to go over them at all now, or should we?
No, 14 New Road may continue into May as they were tabled in inland wetlands. So they're likely not going to be ready for any action by the commission this month. I didn't update that yet because they're still working with them on what their plans are. They're working to revise plans. Yes, but the rest of them are pretty straightforward. No public hearings scheduled for the next meeting, so that's kind of nice.
That is nice.
I don't understand. Why is that?
What's that?
Just the nature of the applications.
Just because of the applications.
A site plan application does not require a public hearing.
So none of these require public, that's what you're saying?
No, yes, exactly. That's why. There are no special exception applications. Coastal site plan or site plans do not require a public hearing. Although it is at your discretion if you wanted to hold one, but it's not mandatory.
Okay.
We do have one receipt this evening at 206 Boston Post Road. We'll table that to the April meeting to schedule the public hearing. The public hearing will likely, well, it won't be this month because there's not enough time for notifications or legal notices. Depending on when additional information comes in, that could be pushed even into June. As it will require a coastal site plan that has not yet been submitted.
That's the building that the Shoreline Arts is in, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right on the marsh.
Yes.
Okay, Aaron, appointment of the assistants. Uh-oh, did I lose you guys?
You're frozen.
Or
Yeah.
we were frozen for a second.
A little bit there, Carol.
Sorry, I might be my Wi-Fi. Why don't you go ahead, Aaron, and
Moved on to the next one.
should we?
Okay.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say.
Thank you. So Maria was our land use assistant, our administrative assistant, and was promoted to land use technician position a couple months ago, and unfortunately hasn't actively been able to participate really in those new responsibilities because we were in the process of advertising and hiring a replacement administrative assistant. So we do have a new employee who's looking to start this Monday as our administrative assistant. So we'll be a 3-person team now. We'll just be down our one land use official position. The land use technician is a new position that was created within my department and essentially serves as a deputy zoning officer and a deputy inland wetland officer and assists the land use official. in those inspections, permitting, enforcement actions. And so Maria has gone through her training and passed her 2 exams with Casio for work, and she's working towards her certification. Her last step to receive certification is actual zoning enforcement and doing a case study of enforcement action. And so in that light, and having our new administrative assistant come on board, it's time to authorize Maria as a deputy zoning enforcement officer. She'll start training with myself and Steve Natick, who is helping us out on an interim basis. Bless you, Bob. And then as she gets her sea legs, she'll be able to go off on her own and do some more zoning enforcement work. So we're excited that we'll have a little more manpower here in the department. But it is in the zoning regulations that the commission has to appoint the zoning officer. So that's
So we
why.
need a motion to appoint Maria Patola
I'll make
as
a
deputy
motion.
zoning.
Make a motion to
Second.
appoint Maria Patola, yes, as the new deputy zoning enforcement officer.
A second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Assuming no further discussion. Great.
Can I ask a question here? I was just told by happenstance that Elliot's no longer with us. Maria,
That was part of my,
Is that
that's,
true?
Our comments, yes.
that was going to be my comment. Yeah, Elliot Hitchcock has resigned after serving in planning and zoning for 7 years.
Wow.
He was terrific. We're sorry to lose him and his experience. And yes, he is married to Maria Patola. So in a way, her advancement, her gain is our loss, I guess, of Elliot in a way.
More time.
One
Is
way to
that why
think
he's
of it.
leaving? Is that why he's leaving? Oh,
No, but I
Oh.
think that,
No, they just have their Thursdays back together now.
okay.
yeah, they have a life again, I think. But
Until I drag Maria to more commission meetings.
yeah,
That's staff.
she'll be swept up in the vortex.
Can I jump in and just add something? Because I'm sorry. I just want to get this in. I don't know how many people agree with me, but I feel, especially since there are now people who are kind of going after us as a commission because of the PDD. I think that I think it's really important for us to be in person so we can actually see the people who are commenting. Last night or 2 nights ago, Guilford had a zoning meeting, and actually I think it had to do with the schools, and 400 people showed up.
The Board of Education meeting, yeah.
Board of Education meeting. And I think that if we have 400 people trying to get on a Zoom meeting, first of all, I don't think that's possible, but it's very uncomfortable for me, and I don't know how the rest of you feel, but for me personally, it's very uncomfortable to feel like we're out here in these little tic-tac-toe boxes and we have no reference pretty much at all. I mean, we get a name and the address, and that's about all. But we don't know how many people are out there listening, how many people are waiting for phone calls. And I think it does 2 things. I think that I don't like it. I mean, I understand if people are sick or they want to stay in their pajamas and be home and do the meetings at home. But I think it's very important. Killingworth, Essex, Guilford, they're all meeting in person. I don't understand why we can't meet in person. I know there's something about the OWL, but I think that's, if we can solve that. Maybe even, at least, maybe not this meeting, the meeting that's not public hearing, but maybe especially when we have a public hearing, we can encourage people to come to wherever we are and be in person. I think that's extremely important. And I, for one, want that to happen.
Janet, are you looking to include a remote ability as well, or just?
Well, I thought you said it was now, it had to be remote as well. It had to be hybrid.
No, so if a commission member requests to attend a meeting remotely, the town needs to, or the municipality needs to make that available.
Mhm.
That's
Okay.
not the case for, your hybrid, it doesn't mandate that you are hybrid. We did have, some members of the commission, which we've had some turnaround over the last 6 months, but members who were requesting to be, to attend remotely,
Sure.
which was why
I thought you had told us that
trying to balance that.
we had
I
to
guess that was my question.
offer that.
What do you prefer?
I prefer to be in person. I
Only.
just, I really do. And especially because we have such an important role with the community, and I think the community is going to try to be more involved with us going forward, especially as new members. And I think more than ever, it's important for us to be there and answer to them directly. And I also think that before a meeting, if we see 10 things on the agenda, 10 applications that we need to get through, I think that it would be great if Carol could just kind of pool us and say, we're probably not going to get through all these, so let's agree to shut it off at 10 o'clock or whatever we say. I don't care what time it is. But I think going until midnight and trying to vote on really important issues that late at night is not in anyone's favor. And I think we're going to open ourselves to criticism. And I think we could even open ourselves to a lawsuit.
I've got my hand up, so let me respond. Janet, I agree with you strongly on one point and disagree on another. The one I agree with is that the commission should be meeting in person. And my reason is not just that I want to see who's out there and be presenting and all of that, but I think it's important that all of us see each other and the body language and everything. And there's actually, my social science based there's actually some data that too much time on the Zooming leads to all kinds of bad health, mental issues, that people communicate better face to face. So I strongly want us to have in-person meetings, but I would also argue, at least want to hear more discussion as to, I think we should be hybrid, that there's a number of citizens who like to watch, and they may not, be there because they're disagreeing or not agreeing or whatever, but they've heard things about us, blah, 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 blah. It's hard for them to get out, fragile, elderly, whatever. So I would love it that we would keep an option that people who want to watch the proceedings can do so, but that we would be in person. That's my 2 cents. I also think setting a time limit's not a bad idea, to what you said, that we shouldn't be, I'm an old person and I get even more incompetent the older I get, the older, that's true, but the later it gets. So, you should plan on stopping at certain times and not be quiet.
Thanks. John, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I guess, Bob, are you saying we should be hybrid so people can watch and also allow people to comment through the Zoom call or?
You're asking if Bob wants hybrid participation or just,
Yeah, people who want to comment. Because also, frankly, some of these attorneys are way away and lots of stuff. So if it makes them a little easier, I would encourage them to attend in person. But if it's difficult, okay, I would allow them to make presentations. But I don't feel strongly about that. I think it's probably a good idea to allow them.
I'm not sure it kind of gets to where Janet's point here is that it's a exchange in person with the people who are commenting. I mean, I understand. I'm with you that we should make it easy, but we're not going to get that personal interchange.
Well, it'd be an improvement versus what we have now, though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a step in the right direction. The other thing is,
That's,
regarding the presenters, I agree, the hybrid is fair, but it's also known to those people that they're not gonna have the same impact or online that they would have in person. So, I mean, I'd be surprised if an attorney who was nearby didn't come in person, and if he didn't, that's his own decision or her own decision. But the hybrid makes sense. The other thing that seemed to be a concern was that the hybrid wasn't perfect. Well, that's another reason for somebody who believes it's important to make the short trip to get there in person.
Michael, Bogdan, do you have any?
No, I'm listening to what everybody's saying. I like the hybrid. I like participating, but I'm open to whatever everybody else would like to do.
Yeah. And Bob Reinhardt,
In person.
in person.
Hybrid though, I think you need to open it up because a lot of people can't come. If you have kids in bed, you can't come to a meeting like this, but they should be able to participate. It's one of the challenges of the government style we've chosen for Madison.
That's a good point.
That's fair, Steve.
So is it possible to not meet in town hall? Is it possible to meet in the high school? Or someplace where it's easier to get better AV or better layout? That's just a question. I don't know what the rules are.
I think it really depends on room availability and, what their technology is there. We can continue to
Yeah.
look at this.
How about the senior center? That's within walking distance of me. And I'm eligible. It's all about you, Carol. It's all about me. And
I
I'm
almost
writing.
walked there on a nice night.
Well, I'm game for in person, but I do like the hybrid for for the applicants. I'm the one who complains though about not being able to see the screen. And actually, Aaron, it was very refreshing to me that the Board of Selectmen were complaining about it when I was giving my presentation. That, now I know it has to be at least 24 font on your PowerPoint. But I think that, those are things that we tried to work through. It didn't work very well. We were all shuffling papers and making noise, and the owl was picking up everything, and it was chaos. But I think we can do better if the majority consensus is in person. What do Aaron, can you look into that and maybe see if there are other venues?
I think it's a matter of people being able to be heard. I had an affordable housing committee meeting yesterday doing hybrid in meeting room A, and the folks who attended remotely couldn't hear because the owl can't pick up their sound. So I don't want to. We need better technology in the room or some type of amplification system, something that can improve the situation. Almost every time I go in there for a hybrid meeting and plug into one television, it won't share over to the second television, and there's always some technical challenge. There's been talks of updating the system or adding a Promethean board to the wall, and these are all, real money. These are decisions that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance have to make.
What about the other room that you mentioned, Aaron? You said there was another room we could meet in?
The other room is the Hammonasset room, which is the Board of Education conference room, which has a Promethean board and one television. It has a better Zoom setup, but I don't know if the room is even available for us. I think I looked into that. Try and do a meeting for us, and there are conflicts in meeting rooms.
We should be able to learn from how Guilford's dealing with this, or Essex, or these other towns.
Illingworth, I mean,
If they can do it, Madison's got to be able to do it. If we want to do it, we can do it.
Yeah, we may not be able to do it next time, but if we can start looking into what it would take, it'd be worthwhile. Because I agree, it's hard to communicate with residents when you can't see them.
Yep.
Without
And I
division.
think they're clearly frustrated being a voice
Yeah.
on a phone, and they're irritated just coming to that
yeah, I think it does irritate them.
format. Yeah.
For good reason.
Well, I
Okay,
appreciate
we'll
it.
continue to look at that. I
Look into it. Okay.
think we
Moving
jumped over the minutes.
Yeah, moving along. Approval of minutes. John Duza, we have March
Sure.
2nd.
March 16th, 2023 meeting. Members present, Snow, Duza, O'Connor, Ronhart, Morgan, and Bugda. Do I have a motion for approval?
I wasn't there.
Well, we had March 2nd meeting minutes on our agenda. And yes, we did have minutes from March 16th as well, are there.
Okay, so our last meeting was March 16th,
Okay.
correct?
Oh, okay, all right, got it.
And on March
Understood.
16th, we approved the previous one. Okay,
Yeah, I got it.
did I get the members present correct?
Yes.
Yes.
A motion for approval?
Approved. Motion.
Second,
Second.
any comments, discussion, or edits? Or corrections? Okay, I have none. Vote to approve? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Did we already approve the March 2nd minutes?
On March 16th, I recall doing that.
Okay.
I think so.
Oh,
Yes.
and that's where you caught the plan development? Yeah. I think that's right. Okay, good. Yeah, so remarks from the chair. First, I was going to mention Elliot. We've already talked about his resignation. I also just wanted to say that I'm going to be away in May for the zoning meeting, the middle of the month meeting. So I don't know how we decide who gets to chair, because we've just lost our co-chair.
It would be John Dusa would be next in line as the secretary.
John, I can send you my cheat sheet of Robert's Rules of Order.
Sounds great. I'll look
It would
forward to
be
it.
the
Hey, John.
May 18th
All right,
meeting.
John.
May 18th
Wonderful.
meeting. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Aaron, any remarks further?
No,
Anyone else?
One last topic regarding the public outreach regarding education, which you had mentioned previously. I know Bob did not think it was a good idea to publish anything to try to explain our positions, but has anybody changed her or his mind about that?
Did everyone see the Shoreline Times article
have.
yesterday? Yeah, so there is going to be a meeting. Aaron, I think it's okay to talk, right? A little bit about this, of how we're doing, how we're responding.
well, we did have Carol and I joined the Board of Selectmen meeting last Monday night, to give an update on the various applications, business that's come before the commission, which I've done several times before with the board, just letting them know what's happening. And then after that, segued into a general educational slideshow presentation on what the Plan Development District is. That's available in the minutes of of last week's Board of Selectmen meeting as well.
And I think they're going to post our PowerPoint presentations. I don't think it's been done yet.
Online.
Yeah, like on the town website.
Okay. And there was this organization who posted the advertisement in several, at least two local newspapers, identified as Post. was the organization. And then a subsequent article that came out earlier this week, following up and identifying some of the members of that organization with questions. They had requested a meeting with Peggy and I. Julie Ovian had requested a meeting, and so that's something that we're working on scheduling to
In which newspaper? was this
Shoreline
advertised?
Times,
Okay, I just haven't looked at this week's
Well,
Shoreline
I
Times,
think
but I
it'll
will
be-
now.
tomorrow. I should, I mean, the hard copy will be there. You can see it
I got
online
it
now.
yesterday.
I
I
got
got-
one today.
Yeah, no, I have it.
Oh, do you?
The source came today, but yesterday I got the Shoreline Times in my driveway, and it's online as
Yeah, it's
the
online.
Connecticut Examiner. Is it that, Aaron?
I think I can't.
Or
I
Zip, is
think
it
they kind
Zip
of-
06?
It's, you got it, if you
I've seen
go,
them in multiple papers, so I don't know which.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know which one specifically. But again, that's really the only follow-up aside from saying that, no, I don't think individual responses are appropriate for the Planning and Zoning Commission to defend decisions or procedures of applications. And there are opportunities for general educational opportunities regarding land use in general. We can tie some of that into our plan of conservation and development efforts. We can plan special events. We can really educate however we'd like, on particular topics that you think are relevant. I think there are challenges when you have pending applications as far as discussing certain things.
Right. That's
Generally speaking.
That's not appropriate. I think I also, Aaron, encourage when people chat to me about it to say, well, come to our meetings or come participate in the plan of conservation and development if you think that, these sort of extreme reactions that we're hearing about, in particular, the approval of the PDD for the Winter Club and Barbary Hill stretch of Route 1. So.
And I can tell you that I've had individuals call me with questions or come in and sit and talk about what a
Yeah.
planned development district is or things like that. And that's part of my role as town planner to do that. And I would always encourage that. It's hard to reach out and communicate with folks when things are done anonymously and there's no one to,
Yeah.
really to speak to. There were challenges in that sense. I think we'll have an opportunity now moving forward to talk to some of the folks in that group and see specifically what their concerns or questions are and make sure that all the facts are accurate.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Just one quick question. Just from the appropriate way to interact at these meetings, I've noticed that typically when someone comes up and the public expresses a concern or an opinion, we never engage. Is that by design or is it just by
Well,
happenstance?
That's something that we could talk about a little bit, and folks who weren't able to attend the Bar Association Land Use Commission training, or perhaps just general legal advice on how to run a meeting,
Yeah, there's a whole section about it and the.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And that maybe that's something if, I don't know, just to show how many did attend the Bar Association training?
Well, I attended
Oh.
3 of them
I've seen online, yeah.
and 1 on housing, so.
But
I
not
did
the,
attend
not
all
the
day.
Saturday course. That's what I'm
Didn't-
talking about, the full day Saturday course.
Connecticut Bar.
That
Yeah,
was-
so,
It may be worthwhile to
Well,
have.
Aaron,
our
we've
land use
oh,
attorney-
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry. and I've done this with our zoning board of appeals, you know, just have a general informational discussion on land use law and how to run an effective meeting, and what the process is during a public hearing.
Especially during public hearings, yeah.
You know,
Because basically we are here to listen, and you know, it is not really a time for us to respond to questions. The applicant can respond to some of the questions and choose, but yes, Aaron, you and I have talked about having the land use attorney for Madison come and spend a session with us one-on-one. Or planning
yeah,
commission
it's
as
helpful, I
one.
think. It can kind of talk to you about, you know, just, I mean, we have the general format, you know, an applicant presents and the commission has an opportunity to ask questions. Here, we allow the public to have an opportunity to ask questions. Oftentimes, you may find that that turns into a discussion or, you know, immediate responses. I think that's sort of the format that you can establish as the commission. You know, you can state how this is going to move forward. We allow people to ask questions and then the applicant to address those questions when you're done, rather than a back and forth. And then
Right.
you have folks who then speak either for or against the application. And sometimes the questions turn into a statement and then it evolves from there. And then you end up having individuals speak 4 or 5 times about, you know, during a public hearing process, and you start to lose the structure of the public hearing itself. So I think those are good questions, and you know, you can hear from me all you want, but sometimes it's nice to have that legal point of view. And our land use attorneys, Ira Bloom and Pete Gelderman, they'll come together and they do a great job.
Okay.
So that's an option as well. You know, I guess we can either tag that along perhaps at one of our planning meetings where there's you know, it's a lighter agenda, or we can just schedule a special meeting. That's focused just on.
I think a separate meeting would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to reach out to them and talk to them and see what their availability is over the next few weeks.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, if there's no other business or comments or questions, could I have a
Cool.
motion to adjourn?
I want to thank Aaron for sending me a check. I got reimbursed and got my first check from the town of Madison.
You frame it?
Wow.
That's good.
His stipend. No, I'm teasing.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Right.
That was for the Connecticut Bar Association registration fee. So those who, if you did attend and are looking, and Carol, we did receive yours also.
Yeah, I just found it today.
Expect a check in the next couple of weeks as well, reimbursing that fee.
Okay, motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make it.
Thank you. Second, all in favor?
Second.
Good night.